Hey everybody, how you guys doing today? This is Jim Prusak, physical therapist from the Pain PT, and today we've got evidence of the week, which I bring to you every week. There's just so much evidence out there. I'm boiling over. I read so many different papers and different information that it's hard to know what to share with you. So every week I'm going to share with you some evidence to show you how the brain can cause impact and in different ways influence chronic physical symptoms in the body and different areas we need to work on for our recovery. And if you like what you're hearing here, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It helps more people get this free information that I'm giving. If you are looking for more support, want an initial assessment to see if your condition is what we call neuroplastic or related to the brain and nervous system versus the body, reach out. I also offer coaching support to get people back to recover. And I also have group classes as well. You can find out more about all of that at my website, thepainpt.com. Okay, so today, evidence of the week. What are we going to go through? I pulled the study today that was done in 2022. And I feel like this is a good one just to show you the power of stress, right? So people who don't believe and see how stress, emotional stress, causes many physical symptoms in the body as well as cognitive and emotional issues as well. So the title of this paper was Cognitive, Emotional, Physical, and Behavioral Stress-Related Symptoms and Coping Strategies among university students during the third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, again, this is a nice paper because remember, COVID was such a stressful time for many people. So it was a good time to study how stress from some very real thing can impact people. So this paper really went through, and you're going to see the power of how stress around COVID, around the pandemic, affected university students and how it came out in their system. Okay, so they looked at 1,467 randomly selected undergraduate university students representing colleges from 30 universities. Okay. And what they did here is they looked at the stress response. And we know the stress response comes in times when the brain doesn't feel safe or it feels under threat or danger. Okay. And it says here that many things can activate that stress response, right? Many different things. So COVID was one of them, and that was tremendously stressful for many of you. I saw a lot of people during COVID that COVID directly affected them in a psychological way, but then also in a physical way in terms of symptoms that weren't caused by COVID itself, but caused by the stress from dealing with COVID. So let's go through the study, and I'm going to just go right down to the results here and the data because it's so powerful to understand this and see how the stress reaction, stress response that gets turned on from your brain goes through your autonomic nervous system and can come out in multitudes of ways in your body. This shows you how you can have many different types of symptoms, physical, also emotional, cognitive from the stress. So let's go through the results here. Let me get down to where I want to find this information for you guys here at the bottom. And here we go into the discussion here. So let's go over some of the physical symptoms of stress that these university students had that they were able to determine and check off with these students. So they reported that 82.6 of the university students experienced stress-related fatigue. Okay, so this was one of the symptoms they had was fatigue, but we see a lot of people who do have fatigue, chronic fatigue or different types of adrenal fatigue. Okay, so 82.6 of the students experienced stress-related fatigue. And they say here that stress impairs your adrenal gland function, right? Has an impact on energy levels versus different mechanisms in your brain, your gut, your immune system, your endocrine system, mitochondria, right? But remember, these downstream effects that I'm telling you about are caused by a stress. Okay, it causes these changes in the body, which then cause the symptoms. I want to be so clear on this, and because everybody's chasing symptoms, treating symptoms, but we really want to be treating causes. So stress is a cause of these symptoms. We want to treat the stress, not the symptoms. So one of them was this fatigue. Again, it's saying how the stress can cause fatigue in the body through affecting these different systems from your autonomic nervous system. So again, they also found that 58.2% of the students reported stress-related dizziness. That's another common symptom we see. And this was consistent with the stress effect on the vestibular system. And they say here in the study, this proved the causal association between stress and dizziness, which we know already proves and exists from other studies. I see a lot of people with dizziness as well. Stress-induced dizziness, stress-induced fatigue. Those are probably two of the common symptoms. Some of you may be saying, I have these myself. So this study, again, I'm going to keep hammering it home, proving that stress around COVID, which was very stressful, causing these physical symptoms in these people. The physical symptoms were real. The cause was stress. As regards to stress-related neuromuscular system, it was significantly impacted by stress in these students. Low back pain accounting for 70.6%. Neck pain accounted for 67.8%. And shoulders and arm pains accounted for 63.3% of the symptoms in the university students. And they say here this is consistent with findings of numerous studies conducted in a variety of workplaces in a variety of countries that demonstrated a link between stress and musculoskeletal pain complaints. Now, again, that's a real common one, right? Remember, stress starts in the brain, goes down your nervous system, autonomic nervous system, can affect a multitude of systems. The neuromuscular system is a common one. That's what Dr. Sarno talked about, TMS, tension myositis syndrome, a lot of physical symptoms in the body. And these university students had them, and they were caused by stress. So just showing you the downstream effects of stress on your body. How about in terms of stress-related neurological symptoms? Okay, so the neurological, the nervous system. 59.9% of university students reported shakiness in their extremities, such as their hands. Okay, and they say here that this is anxiety. When the body prepares to deal with the stressor, it perceives anxiety as a signal that there is a need to evacuate from danger. Thus, the muscles become ready to respond, resulting in trembling, twitching, or even shaking. Okay, so we can see that that's a very classic fear reaction in the body. Remember, everybody, stress, I want to come back to, is also emotion, right? Stress, psychological stress is about your emotions, and that's what causes physiological reactions in the body. It also says here, additionally, stress can exacerbate psychogenic tremors, okay, which they saw here, which are also caused by stress. Okay, what else? How about tension type headaches? Some of you may be dealing with headaches or migraines. They said that was tension type headaches and tightness around the head were reported by 83.5% of university students. Okay. And they say here that we can see the research is beginning to shed the light on the link between stress and pain processing and the central nervous system, particularly in the central pain systems that are thought to be dysfunctional and tension type headaches. 58.7% of the students suffered from stress migraines. Okay, now this is even worse than tension type headaches, right? This is what they say, debilitating, throbbing, and severe pain present on only one side of the head. Stress and anxiety can also trigger tension type headaches and migraine and contribute to its chronicity. Okay, so again, head pressure, tension headaches, migraines caused by stress in a good number of these university students because of COVID. How about in terms of stress-related dermatological symptoms? 75.3% of the university students experience hair loss during stressful situations, something I see in people as well, right? So it can affect that area. It made it the third most common symptom after headaches and chronic fatigue. All right, so they say here that corticosterone, which is a stress hormone, is a systemic inhibitor of hair follicle stem cell function. So chronic stress, right, disrupts tissue homeostasis, resulting in hair loss. So again, the downstream effects of mental and emotional stress causing real physiological changes in your system. You got to understand this is not just in your head, this is in your body. And as you're seeing here, these are the effects that can happen in many ways. How it comes out of the person it's still a mystery. We don't know why it affects certain systems more, like maybe somebody hits their immune system more, or they get musculoskeletal pain more, or like I said, hair loss or fatigue hits the endocrine system. It can hit any system, respiratory system, right? Shortness of breath. So it can hit any of your systems, the stress, because the autonomic nervous system goes to all these systems in your body. So it says here that 60.2% of those surveyed had acne, and acne is strongly linked to stress as well. Okay. Acne and stress females may be associated with menstrual disturbances as well. How about ophthalmology? Can you say that word? Ophthalmology, stress-related symptoms. Okay. This is about the eyes now. 60% of students had blurred vision, double vision, fogginess, other eye-related complaints. Okay. Consistently with who found that symptomatic floater patients showed substantial levels of psychological distress, that the severity of floater symptoms in the eyes was significantly associated with the distress. Okay. We also know they say here that dry eyes, right? Dry eye disease is more common in those who are depressed, anxious, or stressed, right? Depression and anxiety are levels of stress. How about in regards to stress-related respiratory symptoms, right? So this is the respiratory system now. As you're seeing, look at all the systems that can be affected. Any system can be affected. That's why I say to you guys, you can have any symptom. People are always asking me, what about this one? What about that one? I say any symptom could be stress-related, as long as we can prove it's not structurally related, just structurally related. So with the respiratory system, they found that shortness of breath, they found that in 45.5% of the university students related to the COVID stress, and rapid breathing was in 39.6% of the university students. Okay. So we can see here that how this can affect the respiratory system. How about stress-related cardiovascular disease? Palpitations were present in 59% of the students. Chest pain, 36.3%. An increased blood pressure was found in 28.9% of these students due to the stress of COVID. All right. And we know here, and they say here, that the sympathetic nervous system and what's called the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, is engaged when this happens. And there's different catecholamines, glucocorticoids, inflammatory cytokines that are produced, right? And these can have effects on the cardiovascular system, results in increased cardiac output, skeletal muscle blood flow, salt retention, cutaneous vasoconstriction of the arterial system, right? So these are real effects, everybody, from mental emotional stress. Really want to highlight this and drive this in, and causing these physical symptoms in these people. But the cause is stress. Nothing particularly localized in the body, except the symptom is there, but the cause is stress, and that's so important to understand. Let's keep going. How about stress-related gastrointestinal symptoms? Some of you may have these. Okay. Bloating sensations, abdominal discomfort, mostly reported by 58.7% had those. And abdominal pain was reported by 56% of the students. Okay, and we know here that negative emotional stress, they said, both increases and exacerbates IBD symptoms. Okay. Remember again, catecholamines, cortisol, these adrenaline, the stress hormones, stress chemicals released by the brain in stressful situations in the digestive system can't get away from the combined effects of both hormones in the body, which reduces intestinal mobility. Now, remember what we call the parasympathetic nervous system is called the rest and digest nervous system. Think about that. When you're calm and you're relaxed and you're not as stressed, your parasympathetic nervous system is more activated. It means that you're more in a resting state. Your digestion's better, right? So stress can hit your GI system, as you're seeing here, as well as hitting any of the other systems. They also found that 57.6% of the female university participants had menstrual disturbances as irregular or heavy menses. And this is due, again, to the stress's role in lowering the circulating gonadotropins and gonadosteroid hormones. And so persistent stress can result in this reproductive functional impairment. Now, again, these are the ones they highlighted, and there's many more symptoms that people could have, but these are the ones they found in the study that were apparent that were in these university students because of that third wave of COVID and how it really affected them. Now, let's go through also, before we finish up here, some of the negative cognitive symptoms associated with stress. Now, remember, stress hits the system physically, as I just reported to you, but also hits you cognitively and emotionally and behaviorally. Right? And these are the areas that I focus on in the recovery process. The same ones that it's affecting are the ones we need to change. Right? So you're hearing this information here and you're thinking, well, what do I need to do? We're going to have to shift the stress, right? So negative cognitive symptoms associated with stress, main complaints were anxiety and racing thoughts, followed by poor concentration, memory issues, right? Can affect our memory, poor judgment. All these things are cognitive issues from stress. Okay, and it says stress can shut down many centers in the prefrontal cortex. You know, I've spoken about that before in some previous YouTube videos. And that is, and again, the prefrontal cortex, as they mentioned here, orchestrates the brain's activity for intelligent regulation of behavior, thought, and emotion. And when this happens, right, it allows your primitive brain, the reptilian brain, to take over. It's called amygdala hijack. And this can cause mental paralysis, panic. They say here, in addition to losing self-control, people are more likely to make poor lifestyle choices as well, including bad decisions. So cognitive effects of stress. How about in terms of stress-related emotional symptoms here? Okay, let's talk about that as well here, because that's also important. So in terms of the stress-related emotional symptoms, moodiness, irritability, or rage were the most commonly reported symptoms, followed by depression and unhappiness, loneliness and isolation, anxiety and agitation, right? So these are all describing emotions, right? And again, these findings are in accordance with other studies as well. Again, this is all real. It happens to the body's hormonal stress response mechanism, how it works through that HPA axis I mentioned before, which is going down through your autonomic nervous system. Okay. Also affects member parts of your brain as well. So again, think about that: moodiness, irritability, rage, depression, unhappiness, loneliness, isolation, anxiety, agitation, right? We're looking at different emotional states there that people can have. Remember, the emotions are what ultimately cause these physical symptoms from the brain. Emotions are stress. How about in terms of stress-related behavioral symptoms? We'll finish up with this. Behavioral symptoms as a result of the stress from the COVID for these university students. Well, excessive sleeping, withdrawing from gatherings, preferring isolation were the most commonly reported symptoms, behavioral symptoms. Okay. So they found that some students had an increase in appetite, eating more, while some of them had a reduction in appetite, about split equally. Depends on the type of stress. It says stress alters food intake, either raising or decreasing it. So again, we see all this stuff here, how it can affect behaviors. It causes avoidance behaviors, right? That's one of the areas they're working on here for many of you, is that when you have these conditions, we tend to avoid. We have avoidant behavior, which we need to overcome. You can see how it's affected the cognitive state. We need to change our cognitions. This is our thinking from negative to positive. It's affected the emotional state. And all of us here need to work on our emotions too, processing our emotions, acknowledging our emotions, letting them go, reframing situations, getting more positive. And all these things that you see here that these students had, ultimately, what's the answer here is we need to get stress down. How we deal with the stress is very important. But also, can we reduce the stress? What ways can you reduce your stress? Because that's going to have a positive effect on your system. Remember, there's a famous quote out there that says 10% of what happens to you is the stress, right? 10% of stress is stress, and 90% is how you react to the stress. Okay, so 10% is the stress, and 90% is how you react to it, how you handle the stress. But we want to bring both those down. Okay, some situations in your life, you can't change certain stressful situations out of your control. So if you can't change it, we need to accept it. If you can change certain things that are stressful, let's go ahead and change them. Let's make your life less stressful. That's going to help calm your system. And again, I talk a lot about different ways the brain can become stressed. It can become stressed from the past, things have happened to us, sort of like a PTSD, trauma, first childhood experiences can impact the brain to stay in a stressful state. You can have current life situations or things happening that can create the stress. You can also stress about the symptoms. That's called a secondary stress, which we absolutely need to take down, especially when the symptoms are caused by stress, right? So the whole goal here is to reduce stress. And today's evidence of the week really highlights and shows you, and I love this study because it shows you how many ways, in different ways, that psychological stress from something real like COVID cause very real physical symptoms and emotional and cognitive and behavioral reactions as well from stress. And just shows you how stress has a very real impact on people, that it's real, it's not just in our heads, and that the stress that you may be undergoing and still having is causing these physical symptoms. It is the cause of your symptoms. And if that's the case, which it probably is, if you're here listening to me, that's people I work with, then the treatment or the cure, you could say, is to reduce the stress, not treat the symptoms. Remember that. It's so important. The symptoms are just symptoms. They're not the cause. If the symptoms are caused by stress, we need to get stress down, then your symptoms will go down. Hope this makes sense, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed today's evidence of the week. If you enjoyed today's video and you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It helps more people find it. Subscribe to the channel, pass the information along. Again, if you are looking for more support, help on your journey, how to recover and get over these conditions, I'm here to help you. It's what I do for a living full time now. So reach out. You can go to my website, thepainpt.com, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care now. Bye-bye.